Now this is the White Pass and Yukon Route headquarters, and this is where they service and maintain their entire fleet, composed of 20 diesel-electric locomotives and over 90 passenger cars. But the pride of the White Pass fleet is right here, Steam Engine 73, a steam locomotive from an era when steam reigned supreme. Good morning from Skagway, Alaska. I'm here at the headquarters to the White Pass and Yukon Railway, and right behind me is something very special. This is Engine 73. This is the steam locomotive that powers the entire route all the way through the Yukon and all the way back down here into Skagway. Now this locomotive is relatively newer, built in 1947. Now she does probably look familiar, very similar to the one last week, in last week's episode in Stettler, Alberta at the Alberta Prairie Railway. Now that locomotive was about 80,000 pounds, built in the 1920s. This one is 100,000 pounds, built in 1947. She was one of the last steam locomotives built by the Baldwin Locomotive Group out of Pennsylvania. Now, what's really different about this engine versus other engines is this is a narrow gauge railway, which is significantly more narrower than a traditional railway. A traditional one is about 4 feet wide in length of the track. This is 3 feet, and there's a very strategic reason why. I'll explain this in a second. And this consist this morning is going to be doing the original White Pass and Yukon Railway route. Nobody that built the route had any experience building railways, so they built a narrow gauge, which is only 3 feet in length, as opposed to a standard railway. The Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, Union Pacific, they run a 4-foot track. But by the time they built and the route opened in 1900, the gold rush was over. But what was left was this route and one of the most scenic passenger trips in the world, which is what I'm doing today. So basically what we're doing, the maintenance facility is there. We're pulling the locomotive and the consist completely off the maintenance tracks. We're flipping them in a zigzag formation back onto the main line, and now we're going to back up all the way into town to the station. These guys are the pros for a reason. So while the guys at the front of the locomotive drive the engine backwards and forwards, Scott and Ryan here are the eyes at the metaphorical front as we were reversing into the station. And they have the ability, there's a lever right here, right Scott?
Yeah, there's a valve here. So by opening it, it releases all the air at once, and it can produce an emergency brake application, which would be really rough, but it stopped the train.
Just like that, we are in town, ready to board for our excursion.